Welcome to the On the Rise podcast, where we talk about time freedom, passive investing through real estate, finance, mindset, and how to integrate your faith into your work. Let's dive in. Quick disclaimer as always, I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I'm not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer. Welcome to the On the Rise podcast. I'm your host, Nick Stromwall. We've got an amazing guest today. As a reminder, the On the Rise podcast, this is the new faith-driven leader series where we're learning how to incorporate our faith into our everyday work. We've got on one of my friends, one of my heroes, Erik. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to just read your quick bio. So Erik Olson is a business entrepreneur, the CEO of Dignity Made. He sold his business in 2003 to serve the oppressed in Iraq. After 10 years of humanitarian work, Erik teamed up with his father-in-law to stop the exploitation of coconut farmers in the Philippines and started Dignity Made. Erik lives in St. Paul, Minnesota with his wife and his two squirrely kids and their border collie Mutt. Erik, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
What did I leave out there in your bio? What gaps do you want to fill in?
Well, at 45, it's hard to know what to include and what not to. I think one of the worst questions I get asked on podcasts is, so tell me about yourself. And I'm like, gosh, I was born at a young age. Do I start in elementary school and tell you about, setting up ramps with boards and bricks and trying to do jumps? Or do I start in college? So yes, a lot left out, but that you hit the main points.
So, I mean, that's kind of a very interesting story. Tell us about your business that you sold and what happened in Iraq, and then can tell us about the genesis of Dignity, how it came about.
Yeah, so I was a business major in college, and I got the opportunity to run my own painting company, and I did that for 3 years, and that's how I paid my way through college, and I was able to give summer jobs to my friends, and so it did really well, and so I was on track for this life of comfort and security. I wasn't sure whether I was going to start a business or just climb the corporate ladder, but things were looking really bright, and I felt this tug on my heart to go serve the poor. And of all places in 2003, I ended up in Iraq. You might remember that's when Saddam fell and the country was blowing up. We heard gunfire every single day. And I had never been out of the country before. I'd never met a Muslim before. And my girlfriend had just broken up with me. So this was a great idea. I mean, my parents just loved it. But it was like jumping the deep end of the ministry pool, and it was great. I really enjoyed it, and something came alive in me as I worked with people in extreme poverty. I mean, I worked in soup kitchens and things like that, and my parents were heavily involved in ministry, but this was like a whole new level, watching kids go fetch water from a local river that was seemingly clean and having to walk through raw sewage. I mean, it was a hard situation to watch the conditions people lived in. And so I came back from that year and really was at this fork in the road. What do I do? Do I go back to my plan of comfort and security, or do I go down this new road that my heart's leading me down of working with the poor, helping those that are oppressed and those in need? And I decided I got to try this new road and see where it leads. And that led to the next 9 years of helping people that were in really bad situations, women that had been trafficked, people living in extreme poverty, people living in terrible sanitary conditions, all around the world. And through that, I learned a lot about really what's at the root of helping those that are oppressed and those that are in extreme poverty. And by the end, there was a common thread that I found, which was on the surface, there was all these needs that you could just give money to. But if you go below the surface, oftentimes there were economic roots to the problem.
Wow, that's very insightful. How did you kind of take that experience and then translate that into, okay, I should start something here? Where did you kind of get a vision for that?
Probably the moment where it kind of crystallized was we were with this family in the rural Philippines. They were coconut farmers living. Imagine kind of a bamboo hut, probably 10 feet by 10 feet is all they had. Living on a limited diet, mostly rice, yams, okra, a little bit of corn and eggs. Kids are malnourished, often sick, often have diarrhea because of the unclean water, but they don't have money for doctors or medicine. Um, and so the parents, they had dropped out of school by seventh grade, and the kids were on track to have to drop out to provide for the family as well if nothing changed. And so they were saying, what are we going to do? And so the mother, Jovi, said, well, how about I get a job? And she got an offer to work for the next 2 years in Oman. But she's scared to death because she's heard stories of abuse, rape by the employers. And a lot of women, this is where trafficking begins. They're offered a job and then they're tricked into then having to sell their bodies. So, and I'm listening to them, and they're talking about how they they go to church on Sundays, but they said, how do you believe in a loving God and have to listen to your children cry themselves to sleep at night just because they're hungry? And so I'm walking out of his hut, and I happened to ask him a question that wasn't on my survey that day. I just said, hey, Romer, what's your biggest hope and dream for your life? And I thought he would talk about education for his kids, because that's a big deal in the Philippines. I thought he'd talk about having a home that wouldn't collapse when there's a typhoon, because this family, every time there's a typhoon that comes through, they just hold each other in bed, just praying that the house doesn't collapse on them. But instead, he looked at me and said, my biggest hope in life is that my debt is not passed on to my children.
Hmm.
And I was like, wait, what? Your debt? And how can it pass on to your children? And that's when I realized there was this whole system of predatory lending happening by the coconut buyers themselves to these coconut farmers. And these are interest rates of over 200%. And so it locks for the buyer. It's nice because it locks in the supply. You have to sell your coconuts to me. But it puts them in a system that they can never get out of. And so they're trapped. And that's where they either have to eventually sell the land to pay off the debt, or they have to send a family member far away to go work and make money to make ends meet. And it's a terrible situation where people don't have choices. And that's where we realized this is the case for 3.5 million coconut farmers. And we want to change it. And if we want to change it, our typical nonprofit, community development models are not going to solve it. We need to actually attack the economic roots of the problem. And so that's when we came up with the idea of building a business around their greatest resource, coconuts.
That's amazing. I think for people listening to this, like when you first shared the story with me, number one, I read about dignity in a book called The Steward Investor. And then later I realized that's Erik. That's my friend. I didn't put two and two together at first. But when I heard the story originally, it was like, whoa, here's a problem. I'm going to get a vision to solve the problem. And your vision happened to be go and start a business. So walk us through like what that was like. I think our listeners are going to be really captivated by this story. You were there, you saw it firsthand, you saw the women, you heard the story of the dad say, "My greatest, hope is that I don't pass along this debt." I mean, did you feel broken? Like, were people in your life around you at that time? Did they also feel it, or were you the only one kind of experiencing this and then having to relay what just happened?
Really, more than anything, it really crystallized what we had been feeling for years. I'd been working with a team in Yemen that was helping very, very poor rural families and trying to help them with clean water, helping them with sanitary issues, building latrines, and 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 we were doing really good work. Don't get me wrong, but towards the end, my team leader said to me, "Hey, Erik, if the men here in this area had jobs, we would be able to do 10 times what the impact. And I saw other areas where it kept coming to jobs. I met a woman. The first woman I met that was trafficked was when my wife and I took a team of college students to Athens, Greece. We went to the red light district just to love on some of these women that had been trafficked. I met this woman named Rachel. She was from Nigeria, and over biscuits and coffee, she opened up and shared her story at midnight. And she shared how she was from a large family, rural area of Nigeria. They were farmers, barely surviving. And so when the traffickers came by and looked at Rachel and said, "Hey, we can get you a job as a waitress in Europe," I mean, she jumped at the chance. Her family thought they'd won the lottery. And the whole village kind of hailed her as this tribute that was going to go and make money and then send it back. And, this family was then going to buy more things at the shops. And like 30 million other women and children, their story is that they get to that place having been promised a job. They're abused, raped, and her passport was stolen and told, if you don't pay back this 10,000 euros, think about $10,000, and she had signed a contract in a language she didn't understand, that they said, you'll spend the next 10 years in prison. What choice does she have? And so she ended up on the streets selling her body. And yet every week she's calling home and they're saying, how's it going? And she's having to lie with tears running down her cheeks. I mean, a lot of it comes down to economics. When you're so desperate to make ends meet, it clouds your judgment, and you take risks that you shouldn't take. And so that's where we realized we were already seeing this need for business to be a part of kind of Christian development work that we had already been doing.
I'm Zach Haptonstall, CEO and co-founder of Rise 48 Equity. Our goal is to help you protect and grow your wealth by investing in large multifamily apartment buildings. We do all the work as far as sourcing these large apartment buildings from the brokers, doing all of the on-site management with our vertically integrated property management company, doing all the renovations with our vertically integrated construction company. We completely rebrand the exteriors. We will renovate the interiors to our full platinum level scope, which increases the value of the asset to get that profit margin for the investor. If you'd like to learn about how you can partner with us on these exciting opportunities, and go to our website and set up a call with our team.
Wow, that's amazing. So what happened next? Tell us about how everything got started. What did you do, and what was that process like?
So these coconut farmers that we're trying to help, they were in the jungle, very rural. It was dirt roads. You had to ford 7 rivers if it was raining. And so this was a really difficult area. And all the experts said, well, you should build your processing facility in the big city. That's where you're going to have good logistics and everything. And we looked at it, and our ministry experience told us, if you really want to help people, you need to be proximate to the problem. When you come in and you just parachute in for a day and you come, help those that are, dealing with certain issues, you miss things. But when you live with them, you understand some of the roots of the problem and are able to address them better. So we decided to put our factory in this rural area, which was really hard to build and took a long time. But there were some miraculous things that happened. We ended up quite miraculously having some meetings with government officials who happened to have it on their mind that they wanted to build a road to this area, but they didn't have a good reason to pitch it. And so once we put a stake in the ground and said, we're building our business here, that gave them enough reason to pitch it to others in government to get enough support. So they built a 56-kilometer road, rebar reinforced, 2-lane highway. And that changed not only for us in our logistics, but all of a sudden buses started coming through. People were able to go, and now kids are able to go to college, and it's only 2.5-hour bus ride. If you break your leg, you can actually get to the hospital and not have to hop on the back of a motorbike to drive to a hospital on a bumpy dirt road that's 5 hours away. So it opened up a lot of things, but you have to imagine we built this whole superstructure using 50-pound concrete bags, and mixing it kind of like you would on a missions trip, in a wheelbarrow, or the little things that you do in the backyard project. But we built a superstructure. We have FDA approval. We got organic certification, and it was through kind of hard work, determination, and finding some really good partners along the way who had years of experience in either food or manufacturing experience that said, hey, I can lend you a hand and give you some guidance here.
Every time I hear your story, I just feel so encouraged of your faith of you see a problem and you figure out a solution. And it seems like the heart behind it is you want to serve these people, made in God's image. You want to give them not just a quick fix, here's some supplies, here's some donations, but you want to solve the problem so that it's almost self-sustainable. It feels like even in business, it's easy to give your kid, some money to go buy something. It's harder to teach them how to fish, so to speak. And in what you're doing with these families, help us unpack the amount of people that you've been able to impact. What's happened? Is this a for-profit, a nonprofit, a combination? What are some of the products that Dignity is offering now? And I'm sure there's people listening to this and they're probably like, I want to support this. How can people get behind what you're doing?
Yeah. So we built what we like to call a community transformation plant. It's our factory. We're partnered with 218 farmer families that are growing coconuts, and we contract with them. These are their farms. They own the farms and land, but we help them get organic certification. We helped certify their farms, which for the cost of money and the ability to navigate these organic certification documents, it's just not possible. So they now have organic certification, and we have 114 people that work at our plant. About half of those are full-time employees, and the other half come when there's production days, and we're making coconut oil. So all in all, it's an area of probably about 30,000 people, and we've made a direct impact on at least 2,000 of them, and we hope to do more. We are set up as a business. Nobody is going into this trying to make a lot of money. Our investors hope to get just concessionary returns, and then the bigger impact is on the people. And we do hope that this is something that we can give the business to the people. That this is something that is self-sustaining, that can live on beyond all of us. So some of our products, our flagship product is virgin coconut oil. I think you use some of this. It's great for cooking, baking, skin, and hair.
My wife loved it. We can get some more.
Yeah. If you're watching this on video, you can see that the lids are signed by the person who made it. So you can look up, this one's Anna Lynn, and you can look up her story. And then we make lip balms, because we figured out that the organic lip balms that don't have the chemicals in it, most of them have coconut oil as a main ingredient. So we started making those. We just recently launched some soaps using our coconut oil as a base for the soap, and then also taking our coconut shell powder and putting it as an exfoliant. So it's a natural exfoliant, no plastics, and really great for your skin. We got some other products and things like that. You can find us at dignitymade.com. We're also on Amazon, and a few, maybe we might be in some stores near your area.
That's amazing. Awesome. And what's your role in this organization, and how much are you stateside versus kind of visiting boots on the ground? What's your team look like there? Kind of walk us through what that looks like.
Yeah, so I'm currently the CEO. I kind of started this with my father-in-law, Stephen Freed, who is the founder. And so we have a team in the Philippines, and we have a few people in the US on the kind of the sales and marketing side. So, yeah, but I wear a lot of hats. I wear like 7 different hats, which, kind of feels like we're, even though we're probably beyond the startup phase, we're in that phase of, hey, you just got to make it happen. So work on a lot of different things, but I love telling our story, and I love highlighting how our team has done something really incredible. This is not something that I did. This is something that we did. And really, the way we make our coconut oil is unique in the marketplace. You might know there's kind of two main coconut oils. There's refined coconut oil. It's refined, bleached, and deodorized because it's kind of, the coconut meat sits in the sun, it gets mold and bugs on it, so you have to refine it. You have to bleach it because it's a dark yellow color, which is quite disgusting. And then you have to deodorize it because it stinks. That's what refined coconut oil is. Or if you just see coconut oil, that's what you're getting. Then virgin coconut oil is a little bit better. It's a little bit more fresh, but the high heat process, even if it's cold press, you lose a lot of the micronutrients, a lot of the benefits. So we figured out a new way to make coconut oil using G-force, basically a centrifuge. And so, but we didn't do that. That was a team effort. Actually, the guy in the Philippines who figured it out has a 6th grade education, but he just tinkers around with things, and he knew enough about the scientific method to say, well, let's try this RPMs and this flow rate. And he just did it enough that finally, even though the European engineers, these experts had come from Sweden, Norway, and they couldn't figure it out, this guy with the 6th grade education, he figured it out. And so now we have a raw coconut oil that has 4 times the antioxidants of any other coconut oils on the market. And it just packs a better punch to it. And so it's something that we created and we're really proud of.
Yeah, that's amazing. And can you patent your technology? Is that even a thing?
We don't have any technology that is patentable, but our process is patentable. But the problem is, and some people listening might have dealt with this as well, when you patent it, you make it public. And so the question is, if we make it public and somebody else steals our ideas, could we defend it? And we didn't come from like private equity money, and so we don't have a big budgets. So I don't know if we could defend it. I don't know if we could go against some of our competitors saying you stole our idea.
If you're listening to this,
so right now,
and this is in your field, you should reach out to us because maybe you can help Dignity in some way. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, cool. So there's so many like interesting things about the story. What's it like working with someone in your family to build this organization? What's that been like?
When I first was dating my wife, I said to myself, I am never going to work for family. It's just a terrible idea. And I would say, yes, it usually is a bad idea. I would not recommend it, but it also forces you to make some really good choices. Like, I know I'm never going to burn my father-in-law. I don't have that option. That card's not in my hand. And so it forces me to say, all right, what is the right choice here? And how do we get through this conflict in a way that we both survive and we both can go to family gatherings again and see each other? And it's helped us work through conflict. It's helped us work through work-life balance. How do we not talk about work when we're together with family? We actually joke about that we could probably write a book of all the lessons we've learned of just working together as a family. And not just my father-in-law, my wife, she worked in marketing with us for a little bit. And currently my marketing manager is my sister. So we've learned a lot about how do you work well together in a family environment, and how do you have it be something that actually enhances your relationship with that person and doesn't degrade it.
Man, that's been a great episode. Thanks for just your influence and what you're doing. Thanks for your time. This has been great.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the On the Rise podcast. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decisions, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the On the Rise podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.